Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Eric. I'm glad you could be here because today we are going to be making an absolutely amazing Spanish-inspired goose salami. I'm going to take you through all the steps. Let's get into it. We're going to take this nice and easy, go through each one of the steps. It's going to be awesome. Here's our goose. We bought it a little while back. I really wasn't sure what we were going to do with it. I did use some of it for Celebrate Sausage Season 3 when we made our goose sausage. Absolutely incredible. And so I thought, let's use some of the meat for a goose salami. I've never had a goose salami, so this will be a first. As far as the fat on the goose and the skin, I chose not to use it because it has a very low melting point. So I ran it all through my grinder, rendered it, and popped that in the fridge. We are going to be using some breast and thigh meat. Now for the fat, I'm going to be using pork back fat. And we're also going to be using just a touch of pork shoulder. If you choose to use goose fat, you are going to have a very oily salami, and it's not going to turn out very good. So just a heads up. You could literally use whatever fat you want. I like pork fat because it's nice and creamy, but if you don't want to use pork, you could use beef fat. It'll be slightly waxy, a little more firm. Choice is yours. All right, so here we go. Everything's cut up into small cubes. We're going to pop that into our freezer. We do want it partially frozen before we grind it. I'm looking for a temperature of about 32°F. And this is what it looks like after probably an hour in the freezer. We're going to go ahead and grind this on a 6mm plate. You can use whatever grind you want. This is the one I chose to go with. Notice how clean our grind is. Nothing is smeared. We've got very good particle definition. We're going to pop that back in the freezer while we get our starter culture ready. Salami is a fermented sausage, and although you can ferment naturally, using a starter culture is a lot more predictable, and you're going to get more consistent positive results if you do use one. You don't have to. The one I'm using here is called Flavor of Italy, and we're just going to be adding about a half a teaspoon to just a little bit less than a quarter cup of water. We're making a kilo of salami. Now remember, all this information will be in the description box below. I do want to let that rehydrate for 30 minutes at room temperature. That's going to wake that bacteria up, and it's going to get it nice and ready so that when we add it to the meat, that bacteria can start doing its thing. As far as the spices go, let's start off with a little dextrose. Dextrose is the sugar that feeds the bacteria. We're also going to be adding Instacure number 1. The reason we're adding number 1 and not number 2 is because the total time it's going to take to get ready is less than 1 month. If you're making a larger diameter salami, let's say over 35mm, you're going to use cure number 2. We've got garlic powder, onion powder, salt. Here's a little dried oregano, and then we've got some black pepper. And let's see here. Let's add the Spanish paprikas. We've got dulce, which means sweet. So this is a sweet paprika. And this is picante. This is a spicy Spanish paprika. If you don't have these paprikas, you could go smoked paprika and, chipotle. If you want to do cayenne pepper, just remember the heat levels do vary, and this is our spice mix. Now, let's go ahead and mix everything together. I am, at the last minute, going to be adding just a touch of wine. That's a nice little Spanish red wine right there, and just a touch of potato starch. For whatever reason, I didn't film it. So our meat has been re-chilled, and this is important. You want the meat temperature under 34 Fahrenheit. We're going to go ahead and add our starter culture first, give that a quick little mix. That's going to help incorporate everything. And I've been doing this a long time. It doesn't really matter when you add the ingredients. But in this case, we're adding the starter culture first, and we're now going to be adding the wine. All right, the wine's going to give it beautiful flavor. It's going to give it nice acidity. It's also going to have a food source for the starter culture. And then we're going to add our spices. That's going to go in. And like I said earlier, off camera, I did add just a little potato starch. Potato starch is considered a binder. When you use it in salami, it helps lock up some of the water, allows the salami to ferment just a little bit slower for slightly better flavor development. We'll talk about that later. Here is a small handful. It sticks to the bottom of my palm when I hold it upside down. We know that we've achieved maximum protein extraction. That's ready to go. Our salami mix is done. We're going to go ahead and put this into a sausage casing. Now, through this video, you're going to see me use all kinds of different stuff. We've got a sausage stuffer. We got different scales, grinders, all kinds of different stuff to make salami making easier. Not all of it is necessary. Some of it, in my opinion, is. If you check the description box below, you'll have a list of what I would consider the necessary equipment and the optional equipment when it comes to making salami. So there we go. We've got natural hog casings. Got these from the sausage maker. They are 29-32mm. We're going to go ahead and put them on our horn. And like I said in the beginning, this diameter casing only takes 3 to 4 weeks for it to be completely ready, which is why we used cure number 1. Give that a little prick, and we're going to go ahead and stuff it. So unlike regular sausage where you don't necessarily stuff it super tight, salami you are going to want to try to pack it in there, which is a little tricky because natural casings can rupture if you stuff them too tightly. So this is where experience and practice come into play. You do it a couple times, you'll get the hang of it. I'm going to go ahead and create links by just pulling a little excess casing from the horn, pinching the tip, and then continuing with the stuffing. How you choose to do it at home is completely up to you. You could do, longer links and create horseshoe patterns. It really doesn't matter all too much. This is the end of our mix, and I've got a little bit of that sausage mincemeat left in the horn. We're going to go ahead and wrap that in cellophane, and this is going to be so that we can test the pH later. We don't want to disrupt what's in the casing. So we're going to set that to the side. Now I want you to remember what this looked like raw, because we're going to be paying very close attention to what it looks like fermented, because I want you to start developing the skills of knowing what to look for by using your senses. All right, so let's put that to the side. Here is our salami. Notice we've got our 3 links, and we're just going to go ahead and separate those, give them a tie, and nothing complex about this step here. You do want to make sure that you tie them real good though. You don't want that salami meat spilling out all over your chamber. Now that our links are tied, let's go ahead and give them a prick. This is going to get out any potential air pockets. You do want to look for any air pockets that might have been created. We don't want those. And we're moving right along. We are now going to weigh each link. Now, one of the pieces of equipment that I consider essential when it comes to salami making are good scales. I'll put a link to the 2 that I've used in this video in the description box below, and we'll make a video later talking about each one of them. But as we weigh the link, it's 452 grams. That's our actual weight. That's what the A stands for. Our target weight is 271 grams. So once we hit that 271, our salami is going to be ready, or 40% weight loss. When you're making salami, you could target anywhere between a 30 to 40% weight loss. 30 is obviously going to be much softer. 40 is going to be much more firm. So the choice is yours. I like a more firm salami, so I like 40%. Now it's time to begin the fermentation process. The hard work is now behind us, and you can ferment a salami many different ways. Matter of fact, if you'd like for me to make a video showing you every way that you can ferment a salami, drop me a comment and give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you're down with that. So let's go ahead and put this salami on the cling film, and we're just going to go ahead and wrap it. What we're doing here is we're locking in the moisture. We want high humidity during fermentation. That is step number 1. Now I am going to pull those tabs out on this initial wrap. I'm going to wrap it twice because the moisture level is so high. Those little tabs tend to get pretty wet during the fermentation process. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it a second time, and the prerequisite of having high humidity has now been met. Our second requirement for good fermentation is temperature. Every starticulture has a different temperature range, so kind of know the temperature range that your starticulture likes to operate in. Flavor of Italy has an optimal fermentation range of 75 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. If it's cooler than that, they're sluggish. If it's hotter than that, then they tend to die off. So I want to try to keep this in a 75 to 90 degree Fahrenheit zone, and that's going to allow the bacteria to thrive. If you're using a different starticulture and you want to know the temperature range of that, let me know in the comment section, and I'll be sure to tell you. So here we go. We're going to leave this salami in an area that has a 75 to 90 degree Fahrenheit temperature. In my case, I'm just going to leave it on my kitchen counter because my kitchen's kind of warm. The humidity is already going to be high because we wrapped it in cling film, but we're looking for over 90%. And we're trying to target a pH of 4.9 to 5.1. The pH of the meat is going to drop during fermentation, and that's going to be the optimal target. Now, what's unique about this salami is that we're also going to smoke it. So about 10 hours into fermentation, we're going to take our salami and we're going to place it in our smoker with a pan of water. So I'm going to have to remove the cling film. And we're going to cold smoke this for about 10 hours. Because we're continuing to ferment while we're smoking, we want the temperature in our smoker to be between 75 and 90 F. So you might have to put a light bulb in there if it's a little cold where you live, or you might have to do it at night if it gets a little warm. Ideal woods are apple, cherry, pecan, and oak, but you could use whatever wood you want to cold smoke. So 10 hours have officially passed, and you can already see the change of color in our salami. Now, it's not done fermenting yet. We've only got 10 hours under our belt. This particular starticulture normally takes about 20 to 24 hours to get to the right pH. And although I'm finishing the fermentation process by cold smoking, if you want, you can cold smoke it first and then wrap it in cling film and finish the process like that. It's really up to you. So let's go ahead and take this, pop it into our smoker. We're going to be using a Smokin' It smoker. This is model 4D. And I'm laying them on the rack, but you can hang them just as easily. It's not that big a deal. I like laying them because I am going to be putting that tray of water directly underneath those salami links. That water is going to increase the humidity inside my chamber because remember, temperature and humidity are the two prerequisites for proper fermentation. So let's pull out the pan and I'll show you what I'm doing here. Not a complex setup. It's literally just a pan of water, and I've got a towel inside of it. The edges of the towel are flopped over the sides of the pan, and that's going to allow the water to wick out, which is going to naturally increase the humidity. If you don't put a towel in there, if you just only put a pan of water, the humidity is not going to get to that 90 or 100%, which is what we're looking for. So that is going to hang out in there. Let's go ahead and get the cold smoker running. Now remember, this is a cold smoked sausage. No heat is applied. This particular unit is a cold smoker from Smoking It as well. It's called Bella's. It delivers cold smoke under 80 degrees Fahrenheit, 85 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what we're looking for. We're not trying to cook our sausage. We're just smoking it without heat. That is called cold smoking. So that's going to smoke for 10 hours. If you want a slightly less smoky flavor, you could pull it sooner. If you want a more smoky flavor, you can let it smoke for 12 hours. But we need to really check the pH at this time. So a total of 20 hours have elapsed since we started the fermentation process. And that beautiful bacteria that we added has had an opportunity to consume the sugar. Through that whole process, it's releasing lactic acid, and that's what's dropping the pH of our meat. And look at this. Check this little sample piece out. Remember what it looked like before, totally raw. It's now going to have a glossy look. The color is going to be magnified. The texture is going to be more firm. It's going to be relatively well bound together. When you squeeze it together, it's not loose or crumbly. It doesn't feel like raw meat. And when you give it a little smell, it's going to have a very sweet, slightly acidic, fermented smell. It's very pleasant. And these are all signs of a proper fermented salami. Now, I often get asked, how did the generations before us make salami without all this equipment? And the easy answer is they became masters at knowing what to look for. So unless you're a master, let's pull out our pH meter by a pair of instruments to check the pH. Remember, we're looking for a 4.9 to 5.1, and our pH here is 4.87. Just a hair under my target, and I am not worried about that because during the process of drying, that pH is actually going to rise just a tiny little bit, and we'll be exactly where we need to be. Let's go ahead and check another zone in the salami meat, and I normally suggest checking several places just to get an average, and it looks like right here we are at 4.90. So there we go. Not a problem. Everything looks absolutely beautiful. It's now time to move on to the final step of this process, and that is drying. Now, I've got a dedicated drying chamber. This is from the sausage maker. It controls the temperature and the humidity, and perfect for making all kinds of dry cured meats and cheeses. It is a hefty investment, but if you're serious about the craft, it's certainly worth looking into. If you happen to be fortunate enough to have a basement or cellar that maintains the right temperature and humidity, you can hang them in there. And what we're looking for when we dry the salami is a temperature of 55 Fahrenheit and a humidity of 75 to 80%. That's an average. And remember, we're targeting a weight loss of 35 to 40%. In this case, for this salami, it's 40%. After about 3 weeks, I started weighing each link, and it took a total of about 26 days to get to 40% weight loss. Now, that's just for me. Yours may be a little bit sooner. Yours may take just a hair longer, but this diameter salami usually happens pretty quick. And when we give our salami a squeeze, it's nice and firm, and it smells incredible. Let me just address one particular issue that just came to my mind, and it deals with pH. If you're fermenting your salami and you happen to way overshoot your target, let's say you get down to like 4.6, don't even sweat it. It's still totally edible. It's just going to be a little bit tangy. Pop it in your drying chamber and you're good to go. All right, so here's a center cut. Wow, beautiful marbling, nice even drying throughout. Let's go ahead and give this a cut and give it a taste.
Wow. There is just something so incredibly special when you cure and ferment meat, when you cold smoke it, then you dry it and age it, that just brings out these complex aromas. Talk about intoxicating. Okay, let's just give it a taste. Wow. That is everything that I love about a salami. I mean, the fat is creamy. And when I'm talking creamy, I'm talking room temperature butter melt in your mouth, just coats the mouth with this very flavorful aged fat. The goose is spectacular. It's enhanced with the drying and the aging. The fermentation gives it a slight tanginess. There's a bit of a smoky element going on with that slight spicy Spanish paprika kind of coming in on the back end. Oh. And the texture of the salami is perfect. I mean, it dried evenly. It's nice and bound together. This is a high quality salami that I hope you get a chance to make. Now, if you don't have goose, you can substitute the protein for whatever you want. Just keep everything else in the recipe the same. You could use beef, pork, duck, goat, elk, venison would be really good, rabbit would be really good. And no matter what protein you end up using, you're gonna end up with an absolutely amazing salami. I gotta tell you, I am loving this small format salami. I honestly don't make enough. They're easy to make. They're usually pretty quick. You know, anywhere between 29 millimeter hog casing to 32 millimeter hog casing can be done in 3 to 4 weeks. If you're just getting started in the world of fermenting sausage, this is an absolutely brilliant size because let me tell you, it is incredibly forgiving. It's not very fussy when it comes to humidity. Unlike the larger format salamis, 60 millimeter, 70 millimeter, 100 millimeter, that require more precise temperature control and humidity control. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, drop me a comment and leave me a great big thumbs up. And if you're new to sausage making or salami making, don't forget to click that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.